Hello, my name is Marisa. I came out of the gate very enthusiastically, and I'm going to stick with that. I'm Marisa, just as enthusiastic as a second ago. This is Ross, equally enthusiastic, and we are here to talk today about some really cool programs coming to Helena in the next few weeks. So it is a live theater and community discussion series that will be taking place at the Helena Avenue Theater. And these are supported, or the series is supported in part by grants from the Montana Arts Council and the Philosophy Learning and Teaching Organization, as well as a lodging sponsorship from BWP Helena Great Northern Hotel. So many thanks to you for supporting this wonderful program. So in terms of the live performance, Raven's Feather Productions is handling all things theater. This is a newly formed nonprofit here in Helena. Ross is one of its founders, and he is also the director of the play, so that works out swimmingly. My organization, Merlin CCC, is going to be handling the symposia side of things. So we're a public philosophy nonprofit. We've been around for about 7 years now, which is exciting. And we do all sorts of thinky things. That's my technical term, that really try to encourage and invite us to think together and apply philosophical thinking to our everyday lives. So the upcoming symposia are one such example. Let's see, the entire series is going to be starting February 17th. The theater performance will run for 3 consecutive weekend nights, so Thursday through Saturday. And the symposium will run for 2 consecutive weekends on Sunday afternoons on the 20th and the 27th. So that's the bird's eye view, and now we're going to dive in. So Ross, Raven's Feather Productions, can you tell us a little bit about your organization? How did you get started?
So when I came back to Helena, I grew up here and then moved away. I was looking for more theater options. We have 2 great sources here in Helena. We've got Grand Street and Carroll College. But Grand Street does maybe 7 shows a year, or Carroll does 4. That's not a lot of options for somebody who's into theater the way I am. And so I started looking for ways to make more.
Okay. And you lived in New Orleans at one time, right?
I did. And that really contributed to how I started to look at this, because I was there in grad school, and the theater scene in New Orleans is very do-it-yourself. I mean, the picture most people have of New Orleans is of a music town, and that's true, but it's also a theater town. But that do-it-yourself attitude really shows up. For example, when I was there, I saw shows, of course, in professional theaters and at the universities, but I also saw shows on lawns, in garages, in people's living rooms, in abandoned factories and warehouses. There was just, we want to make it happen. Where are we going to make it happen?
That's awesome.
It is, it really is.
And so that played into kind of your Raven's Feather Productions in particular, and sort of how it's shaped, or?
It did, because when I came back to Helena and started connecting with the local talent and realizing, there's a ton of actors here, there are people who can direct, there's people who can do tech. How do we make that work? And, the standard way is, you buy a building and build a stage and you have a troupe of actors and stuff, and that's really too big and too expensive for at least the kind of thing I was looking at. And so I said, how can we do that in another way? And so I looked at the idea of starting a production company, and that's really what Raven's Feather is. We don't have a staff, we don't have a building, but we'll go out and find one. We'll go to the Hat, we'll go to the Heath, we'll maybe find a garage someday, who knows, not in the winter though. So what our goal is to pull everything together that we need for production rather than trying to embody everything ourselves.
That's very creative and cool. And now you said we, so there are other members. Who are the team behind Raven's Feather Productions alongside you?
So the founders are Kelly Cleven-Kime and Barry Stambaugh and myself. And we got together by working on other theater projects in Helena, particularly Last Chance New Play Fest. And so we all had this desire for more theater. And because I'm a playwright, I read a lot of plays, and probably more than average. And one of the plays that I had read that really blew me away was Grounded by George Brandt. And I thought, this is a really good play for a group that's starting out in the way we were, because it has no huge set requirements. It only has a single cast member. It's a one-woman play. It doesn't have a lot of technical requirements. So somebody who's just starting out, who needs to kind of like test the waters, this is a good way to get started.
I was going to say pilot program just for the pun.
Oh, no.
No, but and this is a one-woman play, right? And
it is,
yeah,
and that was, one of the things that I needed to do as part of starting out was like, is there somebody who can handle, an hour and 20 minutes on themselves?
and a complex role.
In a
too,
complex
right?
role, lots of psychological depth, lots of different changes of emotion, and I immediately thought of Katie Wright because I'd seen her on stage several times. I know she has a lot of experience. She's super talented. I went to her, she read the script, and she said, "This is amazing. Yeah, I'm interested." And so that's when we started putting everything together. So Kelly and Barry and I created the nonprofit structure.
Okay.
I started talking to you about, can we find a grant to do this? How can we get the money to get the first funding to get this on its way? Because you were definitely interested in the psychological, sociological, philosophical
yeah.
issues there, and so it was a really good fit with Merlin because we could present this piece with all this complexity, and then you could take over and start having discussions about it.
Yeah, no, I was really excited when we first started talking about this and to be partnering with you on this. So it's been a very cool venture thus far, and I am pumped to see what happens in the next
really coming
yeah,
together.
it's coming together, which is so cool. So let's see. You mentioned Grounded, and I'd love to hear, and I'm sure the Helena community would as well, just a bit more about the play, if you could kind of just lay that out for us.
So first of all, it's an amazing play. I mean, I don't want anything we do not to be an amazing play, but this one really struck me, and it's been interesting because as a director and being involved in rehearsal day after day after day, it's not getting old. It's like, it's something that I have this emotional reaction at the end of it every time, and so that to me is a really good standard. It's like, it's not like, okay, same thing, same.
Yeah.
It's still got its impact.
And what is it about? What's the lay of the land, I guess?
Right. So the story is that there's a U.S. Air Force pilot, and she's a jet fighter pilot. She has been assigned to overseas action. She is a war pilot. And she meets someone and gets married and has a baby. And then when she goes back to active duty, they take her off her fighter jet and put her on drone patrol. And so she is now, instead of actively fighting off in a theater of war 8,000 miles away, she is living in the U.S. And fighting a remote control war. And so it's really interesting because we don't know a lot about that. There hasn't been, Steven Spielberg's war movie with drone pilots, right? And people have this idea that it must somehow be clean and surgical, everything's high tech and very exact, and that's not the case, both in terms of the emotional response of the pilots and in terms of the destruction that the drones cause. As a matter of fact, one of the things that the author, whose name is George Brandt, discovered was that PTSD for drone pilots is just as high as for fighter pilots.
Wow.
And so, the playwright was kind of just interested in drones in general and started doing his research and found this and got interested in how this kind of day-to-day warfare impacted the pilots. So, you've got somebody who's at war essentially 12 hours a day and then goes home for 12 hours a day. And what does it mean to essentially kill someone and then an hour later go home and be a normal mom or dad? And those are the things that, don't get talked about much and deserve some community discussion. And I think that's where Merlin comes in.
Yeah, there is. There's so much sociologically, psychologically, philosophically going on in this play, and I was really excited when you sort of mentioned this to me and how we could partner together and bring something like this to Helena. And I will say, I think there were so many things going on in it that was really hard to narrow down the choices on
there
what
is a
to.
lot that's happening.
Yeah, and of course we had to narrow it down. So what we sort of landed on for our symposia, on the one hand, the first one is about military experience and culture, which I think this is sort of rich territory to explore. And then the other very obvious one to explore is the ethics of war and autonomous warfare, like drone warfare. So, yeah, I guess I should talk a little bit about some of our symposia content as well.
So we'll be having theater productions 3 days a week, and then followed by one of your symposia.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about the guest speakers that we have that are going to be leading the discussions for each of our symposia. The first symposia, which will be on that Sunday on the first weekend, will feature speaker. She's retired Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Bars. She is a fascinating woman. She was active duty for nearly 21 years of her career with the U.S. Army. And served in a host of positions, so ranging from platoon leader and company commander to senior intelligence officer in infantry and armored divisions. Combat, she has definitely been there. She served in Operation Desert Shield, and Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. She was also a senior duty officer in the National Security Council staff in the White House Situation Room. So I was really excited to get her to come and participate and sort of lead this discussion for us. She's retired now, active in 2008, and she's also developed the Veterans Studies curriculum both at Eastern Kentucky University and now more recently is instructing Veteran Studies at University of Montana in Missoula. Oh, she's also a Humanities Montana speaker, so she's wonderfully well-rounded, and I think will do good justice leading us through this discussion. What the discussion is going to be about, in I guess a bit more detail. We're going to break it into two sections. So the first portion, she'll be sharing a bit about the military and experience and culture from the active duty members' perspective, as well as the family members. So these will include things like looking at military experience as a special kind of community, some of the rules and expectations or general attitudes of military living and what that entails. Some of the ways that engaging in the world that somebody in the military might adopt, which may or may not be unique to military experience. And then also extending that out to looking at families who are in a way on duty as well when their wives, children, loved ones, etc., are serving in the military, and how this sort of shapes and plays out in the family structure. And in the second part, we'll look at the post-military experience, so veterans coming back, and also post-military experience for family members and loved ones of veterans. And so these will be things, I think, to your point you had mentioned, Brandt had noticed that PTSD levels were very similar for drone pilots is on the ground. And so PTSD will certainly be one of the, I think, more obvious and talked about challenges, though it sounds like not talked about as much in the drone warfare arena.
Probably not in public, although, the play also covers kind of the family life issue, because we see the pilot interacting with her husband and her child, and the military community support comes up. They go at some point to a U.S. Air Force psychologist to help her deal with it, and so those aspects are touched on as well.
Okay, yeah. The other things that we'll look at in addition to this are perhaps some of the less obvious and nuanced challenges as well, like sense of identity, sort of meaning making, restructuring expectations of the self and society, all of these things. And how, again, those extend out to family members and loved ones and shape things. So I think these are just really important things to be talking about, and they're also really philosophical and deeply human issues. So I would certainly say for both of these and for the series in general, I think anyone who served in the military, is about to deploy, is related to or knows someone who has been in the military or is just a member of the community, right, that at large, who wants to gain a deeper understanding and perspective on the lived experiences of our military communities and families. I think this particular symposia and the theater series in general is a really good place for us to do that together as a community of thinkers.
And we should also point out that if somebody's interested in one of your symposia topics, they're not required to come to the show. We'd certainly love to have them, but the symposia can stand alone. And so if people find something interesting about them, they're certainly welcome to do that.
Thank you. Yes, that is very true. So you can participate and benefit from the symposia without seeing the play, though I do think your experience will certainly be enhanced by seeing the live performance as well. And it will draw some really, I think, unique and poignant parallels as well.
And both your speakers will attend the play as well.
Yes, and actually we have the second symposia too, which I wanted to talk about. The second symposia in the series, so that will be the second weekend of the play, and that will be featuring Major Hunter Cantrell. Hunter is an active duty member of the U.S. Army, a multifunctional logistics officer, and an assistant professor of philosophy at the United States Military Academy at West Point. So he graduated in 2010 from the Virginia Military Institute, was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Transportation Corps, and has served in a number of positions ranging from distribution platoon leader to surface deployment and distribution commands officer and more. He was deployed to Korea in 2015 with his unit. And then after he returned from Korea, he attended Georgia State University for a master's in philosophy. He also has a master's in intelligence studies with a concentration in intelligence analysis. So all of this actually plays very much into his area of specialty and interest, centering on the implications of emerging technologies like drone warfare, especially as they affect military ethics and sort of social and political philosophy at large. So that's precisely what Hunter is going to be discussing and talking about in the second symposia. We'll do the same thing in terms of splitting it in two parts. In the first part, he'll offer a general introduction of sort of theories about the ethics of war, so arguments for and against, some of the issues and sticking points, and some of the philosophical questions that will arise in that. And then the second part of our discussion, we'll look at autonomous warfare in particular as a specific kind of warfare, and whether or not AWS brings into question or challenges some of these traditional arguments for or against war. I think, as you mentioned, this is something that's going to most likely be something that we'll see increased use of.
It's a huge discussion in the AI community about whether this is ethical and what does it mean to have something that can hunt on its own? That's not what's being discussed in the play, but as an ethics issue, as a philosophical issue, it's a huge question.
Yeah, certainly something that the play inspires us to think about. So yeah, I think drone warfare is just a different beast, and I think raises a cornucopia of ethical issues, both for like today in our lived experience for active duty members and civilians, as well as what you mentioned sort of in that AI zone of future facing questions. Should AI have a role in warfare? What are the implications of this? So that's what's going to be happening in the second symposia. And again, it's one forum where we'll able to talk together as a community of thinkers. Let's see. You did mention already that you can attend the symposia on their own, so they are standalone, which is awesome. Those are free. The theater tickets are not free, but they are very reasonably priced, and they go to help make this thing happen. So,
That's right.
right.
Yeah, so the theater tickets are $20 for adults, $15 for students and seniors.
Okay. And where do we go to get tickets for your show, for the show, and for the symposia?
Yes, so at our website, ravensfeather.org, there are all links all over the website to the grounded performance, and you can buy tickets in advance online. And so far, you can also show up at the door and get tickets. If the demand gets too big, that won't be possible, but currently that looks like it would.
So take advantage of the option to get on there and purchase, and also reserve your seat for the free symposia. That's also on your website.
Right. And because the free symposia, there's only 2 of those, you have less chance to get in, so you might want to reserve your seat for those, definitely.
That's true. And if you'd like to learn more about our speakers, you can also go to our website, merlincccc.org, and of course from there that will take you a link to ravensfeather.org. So we're working together. That's
right.
how this works. So let's see, is there anything I missed or any parting words that you'd like to leave us and the Helena community with?
I can't imagine you missed anything. The only thing I can think of to say is that both Merlin and Raven's Feather are 501c3s. They're community organizations. They're nonprofits. They exist to serve the community. And as anybody who's attended the symphony or the theater or any kind of arts organization in the Merlin knows, those processes can't be funded by ticket sales alone. So if you'd be willing to drop a donation in the hat, either for the theater or for Merlin, we'd all definitely appreciate that.
That's a very good addition. Thank you for making that. I always drop the ball and saying, please donate. Help us continue making things like these happen for the Helena community. Okay. I think that's it. We should say thank you to Helena Civic Television for allowing us a platform, to share the news about this exciting series. We want to invite everyone here in the Helena community, all ages, welcome.
Probably not younger than 13.
Okay.
There are a few F-bombs in the in the show.
Thank you for the clarification. All right. Perhaps the symposia. I think maybe that one is a larger. Well, I guess it depends, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Use your judgment. But we want to invite you to please come out, attend, participate, donate if you are in a position to do so. And I have no closing. Wow. Can we please edit that out?
Let's just say thank you.
This also, thank you. Thank you.